Hello everyone, today we're looking at Timekeeper. Now I just realized that I did not do this DLC boss back when it came out, even though I did release a few Timekeeper videos as well as some of the other bosses. But I'll put those links down in the description if you want to see the Timekeeper runs. But we're gonna do this now because it's really never too late. People start up games every day, no matter how old or new they are. But if you want to check out the Rise of the Fallen boss guide, I will put that link down in the description. It's basically a breakdown of what to expect from each boss and maybe a couple comments on how to handle those abilities. So I'm going to try to do something similar with Timekeeper, and I really hope that it is helpful to, I guess, someone. Okay, so Timekeeper is a 3-phase fight. Most of his abilities are dodgeable and avoidable. After every combo, there is always a window to attack. Sometimes it's a small window, other times it's a much larger window. So it's almost like every phase in this fight is training you for the next phase. I guess most bosses are like that. Like phase 1, he does these basic combos and he carries over these 2 and 3 ability combos in the phase 2, but he kind of builds upon it. He does a couple of new combos, he introduces some new abilities as well, and then you get into the last phase and he sometimes does do the same stuff from the first 2 phases, albeit a little bit more aggressively, but he also has some new moves and he mixes it up a little bit. He changes the order, and some of the moves are definitely a lot more deadlier in this last phase. But let's just get started. So phase 1, he starts with a sword, a hammer, and a staff, and he could do 1 or 2 different openers. He's either gonna start with a sword combo, or he could use a hammer combo. Sometimes he mixes the sword and hammer. For me, I usually get the sword opener on him, and I try to dodge in the direction of the attack. So if he's gonna swing the sword to the left, and I'm gonna dodge to the left. He's swinging to the right, I dodge right. And with the hammer, I usually try to dodge backwards away from him. Yeah, I know it seems a little bit counterproductive because you're literally dodging into the hammerhead part of the base, but it seems to work for me, and I kind of have a hard time timing with the axe, so for me to jump backwards away is a little safer move for me. But regardless of what combo that he does, he would do 2 sets of these 3 swing combos. Now the follow-up to the opening combos is usually a single weapon swing that can be either the sword or the hammer into a jumping down thrust with his staff. Now the jumping down thrust will put the small frost rings, a circle on the ground that form around him. Now you can just avoid these by moving out of them, or if you're in one, I recommend dodging immediately because they kind of explode kind of semi-immediately. So as long as you do a dodge immediately, if you're in it, you should be okay. Now the follow-up to this staff slam is a single weapon swing. Again, it could be a single sword swing, which was kind of swing. The sword is going to swing faster than his other swing, so be prepared for that. Or it's going to be a very slow hammer. And at that time, you'll have your first kind of big window to do some damage. And after he comes up from being down a little bit, his next move is going to be Hailstorm. Now Hailstorm puts these large frost circles on the ground. Again, you can just move out of them, or if you're caught within them, you can dodge before the circles completely fill with frost. If you take a look at the circles, they fill up as they're forming, and right before that they're full, that's the time that you need to dodge. But I usually dodge out of the one that he's in, and then I go back into him to avoid the outer circle, so I can also go and do some damage to the boss. So after Hailstorm, he usually jumps up for a second staff slam, and again, he'll put these smaller rings of frost into the ground. He usually does the big frost rings into the small frost rings. And then at the end of that, he would do a double sword swipe, and you have another large window to do damage to him. So at this point, you will have seen his whole rotation. For phase 1, he'll just start all over again. But if you're using a full icon set up, this phase should go by pretty fast, and you probably won't even see the full rotation at all. I highly recommend doing one stagger. It will give you the opportunity to not only do enough damage to push him into phase 2 immediately, it's going to give you opportunity to do a ton of damage to lower his health so he can start phase 2 with a much lower health pool than if he would have transitioned into phase 2 normally. Now that we're going into phase 2, he adds a Cacrum to his arsenal as well as a Trident. Now you can always tell what move he's going to do by how he moves. So if he's jumping backwards away from Clive, he's either going to do a Cacrum throw, shown here, or he's going to do Hailstorm with his staff, shown here. Now if he's jumping left or right, it will be a 2 Trident combo. So he'll do the first Trident swing right away, and then the second Trident swing would be like a charged thrust. If he's jumping towards you, it's either going to be a staff slam where he either just throws it or he slams down himself, and it's going to create again these frost circles on the ground, and that is always followed up by a forward moving Trident thrust. But we're going to go through how all these abilities fit into his overall rotation. The combos added in this phase are he'll throw the 2 Cacrums and do a Trident right after that. It's like a 2 ability combo. Another 2 ability combo is that he does the Hailstorm into the staff slash, well, it's actually 3, into the Trident. So he'll do the Hailstorm, which is the big circles, frost circles, into the staff slam, which is the small frost circles, and then to finish it off he'll do a Trident swing. Another combo is flash freeze into some big Cacrums into the staff throw. So that's like a 3-hit combo. And the last combo he does is a 2 ability combo, another flash freeze, so he can do flash freeze into slow hammer slam. And those are the combos that you're gonna kind of expect to see in phase 2. Also, depending on his health, or if you interrupt any of his abilities, and he's very easy to interrupt, he may resort to going back to the 3-hit combos at any time during this phase. So it's not always set way that he's going to do things. So the phase 2 opener is usually him jumping away and doing the small Cacrum throw, and I just keep moving forward to avoid them. That's pretty easy. He's not really throwing them at Clive. Next he uses this spinning Trident swing, and he's gonna do a charged Trident thrust right after that. Now this is more than just a Trident thrust. It also has some magic that shoots out the front of the Trident. That's going to give it a pretty long attack range, so you definitely do not want to be in front of it. If you notice that during the fight he switches hands as he used the different weapons on all the stages. So when you see the Trident in his left hand, I pretty much dodge right, and when the weapon, or that's not just the Trident, when you see the weapon in his right hand, I dodge left. And I'm not only dodging into those directions, I'm actually moving Clive as well into those directions, so it kind of helps you really get out of the way. So if I'm running left, it means I'm going to dodge left, but I'm moving Clive left too, because some of his moves are kind of hard to clear, and if you're moving Clive in that direction, it'll give you a little bit more room, and it'll kind of almost guarantee that you won't get hit. The dodge will clear the ability. So after he does these Tridents, he would do another flash freeze, and on this first flash freeze that he does in phase 2, he's going to use the hammer to strike down. It's just 1 hit. And now again, I dodge backwards to avoid the hammer, and I try to really get out of the area before it detonates, because you really only have a few seconds before it goes off. Now, if you have Odin slotted, you know, in some meter build, you know, you can completely disregard pretty much any of these fast freezes with a level 2 or even a level 3 sword. Because, you know, time still passes as Clive does those abilities. And, you know, he's also not affected by any damage during that time. And, you know, after flash freeze, he does jump away. So, again, he jumps away. So we know that he's going to do Cockrums, or Hailstorm. In this case, he does Hailstorm. Again, just move out of the circles. You know, again, you know, if you find yourself caught in a circle, the rings will fill up. Just dodge, just like phase 1, dodge right before they're full. You know, and even when you're trying to run out of them, like I try to run out of them most of the time, I still always have to dodge on the last frost circle to clear it so I don't get hit. Now the follow-up would be another jumping staff. And he will put down, again, more small circles. Like I said, he does the big circles into the small circles. And the end of this combo is a charge, trident thrust. This time when he jumps away, he's going to do a large Cacrum throw. Now these large Cacrums, they pause mid-air for a few seconds. And then they flash right before they resume moving. Now, right after I see the flash, I make sure I'm dodging forward. So I dodge forward to dodge these things. Usually I'm moving forward sometimes as well. And, you know, you have to watch the bosses this time, because while you're too busy looking at these big Cockrums flying, you know, he's charging up, you know, a single trident thrust in the background. So it's the big Cockrums into dodging a trident thrust. Now, there are times when he does a 3-sword strike before doing the large Cockrums. It really depends on how much health you have taken out or if you have interrupted him. But, you know, at the end of his phase 2 rotation, he does an ability called Glacier Strike. Now, this is when he slams the hammer down 3 times, and each time the hammer gets bigger and bigger. And, you know, if you find yourself within this area, you need to dodge on every strike. Because if you don't dodge, Clive is going to get knocked down. And, you know, you can also avoid it by just moving out of the area completely. Because, you know, it's no need to stay in it. But the benefit of staying inside and dodging their abilities is because there's a very big window when he's done. So you want to be as close to him as possible after he finished doing these hammer slams. And, you know, because if you're not close, you're going to have to close the distance and you're going to lose time. If he is not moving into phase 3 at this point, you know, he would start that phase 2 rotation all over again, beginning with the small Cacrum throws. And, you know, actually, you probably should have been in phase 3 before he even finished his whole rotation. But he does end the rotation with the hammer thing. So, now, phase 3 begins with an ability called Frozen in Time. So he flies around a bit, you know, doing whatever he wants to do, and then he begins an ability called Frozen Arsenal. Now, the first move, the first part of Frozen Arsenal, he will throw his staff at you, and this is going to create a ton of frost circles on the crown. You know, and while you're moving out of these frost circles, you have to keep an eye on him, because he's going to start throwing these 2 huge Cockrums at you. Now these Cockrums do not stop like the other ones, so I just move forward through them and I dodge, you know, right before they come into contact with Clive. It's pretty much a guaranteed if you're moving forward and you're dodging forward. So the second part of Frozen Arsenal, there are a bunch of lances or tridents that he has lined up horizontally. You just need to run past all of them before they start shooting off. It's very easy to avoid. And, you know, while this is happening, you know, he pulls out the big hammer again, and he's going to do the big hammer 3-strike things. And, you know, again, you can avoid it completely by staying out of the area. But, you know, you do want to get close to him and try to stay in and dodge it, because again, you know, it's going to, at some point, you're going to wind up right next to him. So after the 3 hammers, the last thing he would do is to begin an ability called Immortal Order. This is where Clive is surrounded by swords. And once Clive is free, they will flash once, and then they're going to try to strike Clive, this is where you want to dodge. So you're frozen, you're free, they flash, you dodge. And at that time, like I said, if you're close to him, if you got close to him during the hammer thing, you're going to have to, you're going to be able to take advantage of another big window while he's, tired to do out damage. Otherwise, you're going to have to close the distance. So now all of that was just the opener for phase 3. And now that we're actually in phase 3, he's going to not rely on so many combos that you were used to seeing in phase 1 and 2. He's going to do a lot of new moves. And but as long as you have your foundation of what to do for each move, you're going to be okay with most of what happens in phase 3. Okay, so to start phase 3, he's going to do this big frozen explosion. Now you want to get away from him when you see him charging this thing up. Now your party members aren't going to move out of the way. They're going to get caught in the blast. So you just need to just wait it out. He'll do it. You'll see them flying around. But you might notice that there's some freezing traps forming all around you. One may even start forming under your feet. You need to try to avoid these frozen traps because they will really slow you down. And during this time, the Timekeeper is still doing what he's doing. He's going to try to do these 2 flying lunges at you. The first flying lunge, he's going to come down and swoop with the sword. Just be prepared to dodge. The second flying lunge, he's going to have his trident out. And the third move, when he lands, is going to be a charge trident thrust. And he's going to rest a little bit after that, but this is one of the first combos that you need to be prepared for in phase 3. After he rests up, he's going to do one of those basic 3-hit combos that you saw in phase 1. It's usually either the sword, the hammer, or a mix of the two, right? At this point, one or two things could happen. Now, if you did enough damage to him, he will begin doing a move called Final Oath. But if he's not quite there health-wise, he will do Flash Freeze. Now, Flash Freeze in this phase is more than putting circles of frost on the ground. This version has the circles on the ground, but it also has swords descending from the sky. And, once Clive is unfrozen, I usually hit dodge immediately 3 times to get out of it. Sometimes I get lucky and get out of it. But, there are 2 more easier ways to get out of it. You can always use wrist flip to slow things down, and you'll have time to exit out of the area. And also an easier method of probably a guaranteed method of getting out of this flash freeze is just to use cold slap. The Shiva will slide just enough distance so you can clear the entire area without too much effort. So now, if his health is low enough at this point, he will begin to do the Final Oath sequence. Now, Final Oath is a very long sequence, and there's very little downtime between each move. To start off, he will have a group of Cakrams all around them, and he's going to throw them at you. I usually run sideways or towards him if I want to avoid it. You just need to just dodge just the one that's closest to you. Next up, he follows up with a trident thrust towards you. Just pay attention to which hand he's using and dodge accordingly. And then he'll jump up and do a downward strike with his staff. I know he's been doing this move since phase 1. Right after that, he's going to do this hammer spin, which is new. And you only have to dodge 1 swing of that hammer spin. So when it's close enough to Clive, you just going to have to hit dodge. And like I said, you only have to dodge once and it should go through you. After that, he will start running around, dual wielding swords, looking really scary. And this would do like a double strike if it hits you. Now, I try to run counter to whatever direction he's running. Like if he's running right or a circular right, I try to run left. And I dodge in that direction. And if you're lucky and you don't get hit with this thing, he will then do Oathkeeper, which is a downward slam with a huge sword, which I always try to dodge backwards away from, or I'm just trying to move away from it because he's actually dodging, aiming it at Clive the whole time that he's preparing it. And if you did not get hit by the dual wielding swords and you dodged this, you would get an amazingly long window to put out damage. Now, if you get hit by the dual wielding swords, you're gonna 100 get hit by Oathkeeper. So if you can manage to dodge these last two moves, like I said, you're gonna have a huge window to put out a lot of damage, and you might even kill him here. Depending on what your setup is. But if you don't kill him, the sequence will begin again. But they're going to be way less combos, and everything is going to be out of sync. He's going to be doing whatever move he wants, pretty much back to back to back. Now, he always opens with 2 Cakrams, and then he goes into the flying lunge that, from the beginning of the phase. And this is usually followed up by 2 more Cakrams, but he's going to throw these Cakrams one at a time. He's going to be preparing his staff slam move, and you're going to have to worry about, the frost circles. So after he put those down, he usually does his running dual wielding swords again, the ones you saw in Final Oath, and you're going to want to dodge those. And if you can manage to dodge that ability, they're going to be another huge opening after that, where you can put out your damage, and maybe this will be the time that you kill him, or he'll have very low health at this time. And the rest is dodging whatever moves that he does. By this point you should be used to him just doing stuff back to back, and you watching him close enough, he should be dead before he even attempts a second Final Oath, because you don't want him to do Final Oath. If he's doing Final Oath a second time, you're not doing your job, and killing him. And that is it. And thank you so much for watching.